Okay, today's project is this Samick powered mixer. It's like a guitar amp kind of thing, but used more for microphones and stuff, I think, for vocalists and stuff. It's a PM-4V, and this supposedly didn't have much sound, but when I listened to it, it actually seems to have reasonable sound level, but wasn't sounding very clear. And I worked out it was actually the tweeter and it was shot. So the woofer's working, it's all just bass. So I've already got this thing to bits and how it looks. So it's got the electronic panel here with amplifier, just a mono amp obviously, and I've actually replaced this woofer in it before. Someone, I think they actually bought it second hand, it didn't go long and the woofer went open circuits. This has got one of these sort of response from JCar in it. That was a few years back I replaced that, probably quite a few years now come to think of it. And that's still going alright. What actually failed was the horn tweeter, which I've already removed and had a look at. These ones you can actually pull them to bits, and you can actually get the voice coil out of them. So I've ordered a new voice coil from eBay. You can get them from China, and I'm hoping it's actually going to fit. I don't know for sure. It had very similar dimensions to this one. I'll get it on the bench because I've actually put a few screws there to hold it together. But this thing's got, it looks like a reverb unit in it as well, which I think there's reverberation controls on it as well as levels. So it's kind of similar to a typical guitar amplifier with a reverb unit, little amplifier. This has got a lot more input than a normal guitar amp would have. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 with mic inputs. And then with the usual tone control, gain, reverb, monitor, low, mid, high, tone controls, power switch, amp in, mix out, effects, monitor, and then just your line and mic inputs on each channel, and a gain and reverb effect level. But all that seems to be working, all the electronics and stuff. So it's just, I found that when I pull this out, the voice coil's burnt. So I'll get it on the bench and I'll see if this new voice coil fits so we can get the tweeter working again. Okay, so we'll get these screws back out. Pretty sure this was fully open circuit because there's no sound coming out of it. So if you have a look there, someone's had this probably cranked up. I think it was the husband and the woman who owned this. And the voice coil's pretty blackened in there. And I think if we measure it, continuity, we should get nothing. So it's well and truly open circuit. Now somewhere, they came as a pair. There's a pair of replacement ones I found on eBay. So at least we've got a spare one there. So how similar they are, I'm not sure. The measurements should be around the same. And these terminals are obviously different, so I could see that. But these look like they're pretty damn close. They should be pretty much the same. Yeah, looks like it's... So is this going to fit into the magnet without scraping is the important thing, which it seems to do. So I think this was screwed onto... Well, actually not screwed on it sits in there. Was there another screw? It's been so long, it's been over a month since I ordered this, so I just about forget how it was, but I think this just... A little bit of metal on there. I think this just screws back together, and that's just clamped into place if I remember correctly by the actual magnet. Now, to be honest, I think I'll put the voice coil. There's a little pin there which does that do anything? Maybe these little pins hold this thing in place or something. Probably should have took a bit more notice when I pulled it to bits. It's not going to go, that's a screw hole there. So there's only a couple of positions this can sit in. It looks like the only one of those that can sit in is between these two little pins here, so they must be the ones that lock that in place, and the other three help hold it in position. So we may have to tweak this slightly just to make sure it's not scraping once it's all back together, because you don't want the voice coil, and this has got a cutout in it, so obviously that only goes one way. You don't want the voice coil scraping on the magnet at all. So that's going to be the interesting part, working out if there's a way to align this thing. Doesn't look like there really is. Guess what I can do is screw it back together gently. That's right, these screws are in a fairly inaccessible position. I'll start them by hand. I think I might have used an angled screwdriver to loosen these off, which I should have around here somewhere. But I think I might have to hook some music up to this, and I can probably use the screwdriver on a bit of an angle and get them roughly tightened up. There's a little bit of play there, not really much, so it's going to be close to where it's got to go. I think I'll hook up either a signal generator or just some music or whatever, and just have a listen to it with some high frequency stuff. It's reasonably held in place. Guess I might as well check that's definitely working. Okay, I found a angled screwdriver. I did have a bigger one than this, which I can't find, but this one's good enough for doing this. Maybe I should even listen to it while I do it. It's certainly plenty loud enough, so I'll put it back in the unit and see what it sounds like in the actual Samick. Okay, back at the unit now. So we've, on the negative side of the woofer, we've got a black lead here with just a spade type terminal. On the positive side, just got the actual high frequency or low frequency blocking cap, high frequency passing cap. Should be some little bipolar electrolytic, so that goes to the positive side of the tweeter. So looking at the old voice coil, I just double checked that, but yeah, the red part with the red dot on it has been soldered to, so it's definitely that way around. This one's got the red, looks like on the other side compared to where that one was. Yeah, it is the opposite side, but that's no big deal. So as I screw this back up in here, and I'll have to put that capacitor onto the opposite side on this one, and we should still be able to slide the other, looks like the same size connector, the black one on. So I've got my soldering iron warming up, so I'll get the 4 little gold coloured screws to screw the tweeter back in, and it's a matter of clipping that negative lead on, and we'll solder the capacitor on, and then I can give it a test. Yes, that's hooked back up there now. Cap soldered on, just put it through the hole and fold it over a bit and solder that on. Other one clipped on alright. So it's a matter now of putting this amplifier section back in. Just being careful, the leads are a bit short on this, but that goes to these couple of screws on the top here, and that'll just hang there, and we'll give that a power up and put a signal into it, see what it sounds like. Okay, I've got this hooked up through the tape input at the moment because that's the only port on this thing that's really set for the right level to go. I'm only using a CD player as the input signal, so that's quite a high level compared to a microphone, but this all seems to be working well. So all distortion free and everything. I've got a RCA to 6.5mm adapter here, so just like your normal microphone jack or guitar jack. So I can go through the microphone inputs and just check those. And they do work, but they are a little distorted going through that. Probably need a bit of a bassier part of the song. Really need a lower level input, so I'll see if I can find, I do have a microphone around here somewhere, and just double check that with a lower input. You know, this only has some CD players did have an adjustable output, which were really handy for this sort of test work. But somewhere I did have a, was it a tuner or something else, some old Akai unit I used to have, which I think I've got rid of now, but that had a adjustable level output, which is great if you want to test like just like block amplifiers that don't have a preamp on them, or car amplifiers which again don't have a volume control, don't have a preamp in them. It's always handy to have something with variable output. Of course, you could just hook a potentiometer up to the level out of the CD player itself. Just make a little adapter with probably a 10k pot or something, and you could actually tweak that right down so it doesn't overload the mic inputs. This is sounding a little distorted, but it's definitely not the amp, because if I go back to the impossible to get that off with one hand. Turn that down before Giuseppe Ottaviani or whatever it is copyright strikes me. But yeah, if I go through a tape input, nice clear level, nice clear sound I should say really. This unit without the tweeter in place, I guess I could unplug it and shouldn't have put the actually might be a bit hard to unplug it, but it was pretty awful sounding without a working tweeter. It was just very bassy and completely lacking in any highs. Probably something like if you turn them right down and turn the bass up here, sort of not much of a good sound at all. Just get the box vibrating a lot. Pot action needs a bit of a clean, I think. Whether it will help by, they're probably only pretty cheapo pots in these things. Let's see if I can get some of the old switch cleaner lubricant up in there. These pots have got little slots in the back, which helps. You can actually just squirt it through that slot in the back of the pot. Remove the music source so I can tweak that right up. Could have turned it off as well, I guess. But usually best to give them a good tweak. A lot of these more modern pots, they won't actually be fixed by contact cleaner, but sometimes it works. Still a little touchy. The bottom part of that pot suddenly jumps up in level. So that's just the monitor. Okay, so we've got a monitor volume and a main volume, so you could put your headphones in and have a listen for yourself with the main turned down, I would assume. And if you're happy with what's there, you can then turn it up for the crowd that listen to it. But yeah, that seems to be all going well. So I might just see if I can find my mic and just double check those inputs, or even put a potentiometer just to cut that down, make sure they're not distorting. But these put out about, CD player puts out about 1 volt peak to peak, I think, and microphones down in the millivolts probably. So even with the gain control on it, input's made for a much lower signal. Other than that, the tweeter all seems to be working again. So it's got a new tweeter voice coil and a new woofer in this one, so hopefully that'll keep them going for a while. They won't crank it up too loud and blow anything else. Now, one little fun thing about putting this back together is this amp basically swings in a bit. You can see it's back in from the wood there, swings around a bit. So getting the actual screws that have to go through the back panel here, there's 4 screws, 2 at the top are no problem, but the 2 at the bottom, if that's swung in, it won't actually bite into anything. So I've had to undo the top screws here just a little bit to make this chassis a bit looser, and you actually have to tilt the whole thing backwards. As you can see, that's closing the gap back to the chipboard there, which even that's back a bit from where the back panel actually sits on the chipboard. So the screws have got to go through the back panel, through the length of that chipboard, and then try and get these 2 holes, one there and one there. So the screws are so long, so they really don't go an awful lot further than the thickness of the 2 bits of wood. So I'm going to have to tilt that up as I go, or tilt it back as I put the back panel on. So if we put this in, got to get the power cord underneath it there, in the right spot. Slot that in, slot the top in, and if I try and put these screws in at the moment, they just go in and don't hit anything. So these are really the ones you have to put in first. Tilt the unit up. And yeah, now it's pushing the screw out when I'm at sort of 45 degrees here. And hopefully that bites into that, but I've now got to, whoops, there goes the screwdriver. I've now got to find the hole while on a 45 degree angle. I'm definitely pushing against the chassis. I'll have to get a bit of fencing wire or something and poke it in there. And just see if I can locate those holes and try and move the chassis. They're there because the fencing wire actually went in surprisingly easily. I'll just shove this bit in here, and that's into one of the chassis holes, so maybe if I can get one located with that while I'm tilting it, I can get the other one in. Other one bites straight in then, I think. Yeah, she's in. So that's all it looks like what you've got to do, locate it on one of them with a bit of fencing wire or something that you can jiggle around in there a bit. And now I'm getting the second one in. Once the first one went in, fencing wire to hold it in place. Get the second one in. I can probably do the rest of these with a battery drill, but I just wanted to be a bit careful getting these ones all lined up. Sometimes it's still better to use hand tools, and you can feel, especially with this amplifier, feel exactly how tight you have everything. So that's alright now. So I've just got these other screws that go around all the, there's another 10 I think, 4 down each side and 2 on the bottom, and it'll be back together. So that was just a little bit extra work. You could use a thin screwdriver or something. I just had a bit of fencing wire here, and my screwdriver that I got here is a bit thick, but a thinner one, and just get that first hole located, and you should be able to get the screws in then, and while still holding it back on a 45 degree angle at the same time, so the chassis swings back to the screw hole, so you've got to do both. But if you poke a screw in the hole, once you tilt it back, it'll push the screw back out, especially if it doesn't go in the hole like this one didn't. So that was just a little bit of fiddling around just to finally get it back together. Catch you on the next one.